My parents pushed me into a marriage to help their business. They had no idea that a week before the wedding, I did something in secret that changed everything. At the party, my dad announced my new husband would run his company. That's when I raised my glass, smiled, and with one sentence, blew up their whole world. Before we get to the wedding, tell me, where are you watching from today? And remember to subscribe for new stories every day. Now, let's go back to that tense family dinner. In my father's house, love was just a deal. I wasn't his daughter. I was like a chess piece in his company game. My father, Conrad Hawthorne, didn't talk. He held meetings. Even birthdays had a plan. That night, he called me to his fancy study. A fire was lit, but it gave no warmth. Old paintings of ancestors stared, like they'd seen worse things. My mother, Marion, sat in a silk chair, stiff, as if ready for a crash. Her hands were folded, a smile fixed for cameras, not real feelings. She smoothed her skirt, a habit I knew since childhood. She wasn't a mother. She was like the manager of our home, handling schedules and appearances. Somehow, love had disappeared. "Good news, Alina," my father said, in the sharp voice he used when a deal was already done. "The big deal with Macmillan Industries is almost finished. It will make our company the best." I nodded, because that's what I was taught to do. Be like quiet furniture. "However," he continued, "there's one last thing. They care a lot about family. They want our families to officially join." He let the words hang, making them hurt. "You will marry their son, Preston, 1 month from today." The silence after that felt heavy. An arranged marriage to a man I barely knew and didn't like. I remembered the last fancy party we all went to. Preston didn't even look at the waiter when he spoke to him. He called my art cute. "Dad, I can't do this," I said. "It's not working. I need more than you can give," I told him. He blinked, thinking. "Tell me what you need. I'll get another job. I'll teach. It's not about money," I said. That was the only real thing in my lie. It's about us. His mouth opened and closed. His eyes, usually so open, suddenly tightened. I thought. He didn't finish. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just stepped away from me as if I was suddenly too bright to look at. The room smelled of paint and coffee and the lemon oil he used on his art. There was a sketch of me on the table, not finished, my mouth a hesitant line. I walked out, that smell clinging to my dress like a mark. I told myself I was protecting him. I told myself this was the cleanest break. I hadn't gone 10 feet before the door burst open. "Alina, wait!" I kept walking. If I turned, I'd break. That was a lie. "He's closer now," he said, not broken, but furious. "I know your habits. Your left hand is shaking. You only lie to protect someone. Turn around." I stopped. Rain tapped the sidewalk. City lights turned puddles into shiny coins. "Let me go, Ethan. It's better this way." "No." His hand found my shoulder, firm and warm. He turned me gently. "Tell me who you're protecting." So I did. In the dim light, with buses hissing at the corner, I told him about the merger, Preston, and the threat that had squeezed my throat. He listened, jaw tight, eyes burning. Not at me, but at them. "So that's his trick," he said quietly. "He thinks he can buy you. He thinks he can scare me." He held my gaze. A plan formed in his eyes. "He's wrong." He pulled me back into the studio. The rain softened behind us. "He wants a wedding in a month." "Fine, you will give him his show. You'll smile. You'll say the words." He stepped closer. "But you will not be his wife. Because by then, you'll already be mine." "What are you saying?" "We don't run. We don't hide. We make the truth legal before the lie ever happens. It won't stop him. He'll find another way. Maybe. But he won't use you to do it." We called the only lawyer I trusted, the one who taught my debate team, who left big corporate law for a quiet office 2 towns away. Miss Patel answered quickly, listened without stopping us, then said, "Come now." Her office was small and sunny, the waiting room full of well-cared-for plants. She wore comfortable shoes and a sweater, and had a way of paying attention that made hard things seem manageable. "You're adults," she said after we explained everything. "You can marry anywhere in the state. A marriage license filed with the county is valid everywhere. Your marital status is public record. A second wedding without ending the first one isn't a marriage. It's just a show." "What about the prenup they'll try to make me sign?" I asked. "Don't sign anything you don't understand. You can delay a prenup until after a ceremony. If they pressure you, smile and ask for legal advice. They like power. They hate delays. Use that." She slid a paper across the desk. "Get 3 official copies of your marriage certificate. File 1. Keep one somewhere safe. Mail one to someone who will cause trouble if it disappears. Like a reporter," Ethan said. Miss Patel's mouth twitched. "I didn't say that. I said, a person who makes problems. 2 different jobs, sometimes the same person." A week later, on a Tuesday the world didn't notice, we drove to a small town that didn't know our last names. The clerk at City Hall was working on a crossword puzzle. She stamped our papers. 4 letters, truth told on a witness stand. "Oath," Ethan offered. She smiled. "You'll do fine." Ruth and Earl, 2 older people waiting for their bus, signed as witnesses after we offered to buy them lunch. "We ran off and got married in 72, Ruth said, beaming. "No fuss, no photos, 50 years next spring." We walked across the street to a diner with torn seats and ate grilled cheese that tasted like childhood. Earl gave us advice that was either simple or profound, depending on how you heard it. Forgive quickly. Say what you need to say face to face. Don't keep score. Back at City Hall, the judge said we were married. The thump of the stamp felt like a door unlocking. My dress was a $10 sundress. His suit had paint on the sleeve he couldn't wash out. Our promises were simple. Show up. Tell the truth. Choose each other even when it's hard. We mailed 1 official copy to the county records office and 1 to Miss Patel from the blue mailbox outside. We took the 3rd to a bank and put it in a safe deposit box. We scanned it, added a watermark, and set up an email to the board of Hawthorne Macmillan, timed for the wedding reception. We wrote a short, polite statement and left it with Miss Patel, with instructions to send it only if my father tried to hurt Ethan's reputation. We wrote a note to a business reporter who famously disliked my father's ways and scheduled it too, with the certificate attached. We set our clocks. We braced ourselves. The next weeks were all about acting. By day, I was fitted for a dress that wasn't truly mine, posed for photos I didn't want, tasted cake I'd never eat. The wedding planner talked about money and schedules. My mother talked about flowers and guest lists. My father talked about numbers and names. He tried to spring a prenup on me at a food tasting. 30 pages slid across the white tablecloth with a fancy pen on top. "Just standard," he said. "Sign so we can enjoy this." "Of course," I said and smiled. "We'll need legal advice." I put the folder in my bag and changed the subject to peonies. He hated delays. I watched it pinch his mouth. At the rehearsal dinner, he gave a toast about family history, the Hawthorne name, what it meant to join forces with a family equally dedicated to success. People laughed at the right moments. Preston raised a glass and spoke to the room as if he was already in charge. "To the future," he said. "To growth. To the next chapter." His hand rested on my chair, like he owned me. After dessert, my mother found me in the hallway. "You could tell us if you're unhappy," she said, her voice soft and strange. It surprised me, this little spark of something like care. I wanted to ask her if she remembered the last time she chose me over him. Instead, I said, "I'm fine, Mom," and watched the relief wash over her like a comforting medicine. At home, I lay in the dark and felt the thin chain with the real wedding ring warm against my skin. I texted Ethan 1 word: steady. He replied with a photo of Ruth and Earl's hands joined over a diner table. Wedding day. I woke before the alarm, calm as a stone. The house buzzed with workers, relatives, and florists. My mother floated in and out, leaving a trail of pins and perfume. "You look stunning," she said, her eyes shining for the cameras. "Preston is a lucky man." "Yes," I said. "He is." Preston and I were allowed 5 minutes alone for a touching moment the planner had timed. He used them to list the offices he planned to redo. He said, "We'll need to change the boardroom art, and I'll want Macmillan on the glass in the lobby. Large." "I'll let you decide," I said, and checked the time. Miss Patel's message popped up. Certificate recorded at 9:02 a.m., board council meeting scheduled for 8:45 p.m., reporter meeting at 8:50 p.m. We were already in motion. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm like an antique being taken to auction. The ceremony was all grand marble and echoing sounds. I said the words. When I whispered, "I do," my fingers brushed the chain at my collarbone. I was already a wife. The ballroom reception was filled with bright lights and money. Crystal sparkled everywhere. A string quartet in the corner played songs no one listened to. I danced the first dance with the man I did not love. He talked about the stock market. I let my face do what it was trained to do. Agree, soften, impress. When the song ended, my phone buzzed in my small purse. One line from Ethan. "Ready when you are." On stage, my father took the microphone. He spoke like a man telling his own life story. "Tonight we celebrate not just a marriage, but a joining of visions." He thanked important people, mentioned the governor, told a joke that landed well. He was charming, powerful, perfectly happy with himself. Then he raised his hand. "And with that," he said, his voice swelling, "I am honored to announce that the board of our newly merged company has unanimously approved my choice for the next CEO." He turned, hand outstretched toward Preston like a blessing. "My new son-in-law, Preston Macmillan." The room rose to its feet. Cameras flashed. Thoughts of money were everywhere. Preston squeezed my fingers like he owned me. "See," he whispered. "Worth it." My father raised his hand for quiet. "And now," he said kindly, "a few words from the bride." I walked to the stage, took the microphone, and looked out at 500 faces waiting for thanks. I gave them what they expected at first. "Thank you, Daddy." Soft, sweet. "And thank you all for being here. Today has been a dream." I turned to Preston and smiled the smile they taught me in finishing school. "To my husband." I paused and let the word change its meaning. A small correction. The room went silent. Somewhere in the back, a glass clinked against a plate. "My father spoke about unions," I said, my voice clear and steady. "He's right. Legal ones matter." I looked at the reporters in the corner. 2 phones were already in the air. I fixed my gaze on my father, which is why his announcement is premature. Preston is not my legal husband. All the air left the room. This was the silence that comes before a storm. "You see," I said, steady. "I married the man I love last week at City Hall. Witnesses, license filed and recorded. Binding." My mother's hand flew to her pearls. My father turned pale. Preston stared, his smile melting off like bad paint. My phone buzzed in my purse. One line from Ethan. "Ready when you are." The double doors swung open. Ethan walked in wearing a dark suit that fit him perfectly, not for a fancy event. He held car keys. He found me and smiled. "Ready to go, Mrs. Cole?" I let the microphone fall. The sound cracked through the room like a starting gun. I stepped off the stage. People moved aside. An older woman I'd known since childhood, or known in the way one knows important guests, reached out and squeezed my hand as I passed. "Good girl," she whispered, surprising me. My father's voice followed me. First my name, then security, then something about fraud that meant nothing in the face of official documents. The head of security, who had taught me to ride a bike in the company parking lot when I was 8, didn't move. I reached Ethan. He took my hand, rough and familiar, kissed my knuckles and whispered, "Breathe." We walked out under the chandeliers as whispers turned to shouts. The lobby air felt clean. The valet stammered, then grinned when he saw where we were going. Our car wasn't a fancy limo. It was Ethan's old truck that smelled like paint and coffee. I stuffed my wedding dress tool into the cab and climbed in. He handed the valet a handful of cash and said, "Sorry about the glitter." We drove away as cameras flashed and a wedding planner cried into her headset. At the first red light, Ethan reached over and tucked a curl behind my ear. I laughed, a sudden, full-of-life sound. He laughed too. It wasn't perfect, it was real. That night, in our loft 2 cities away, we ate takeout on the floor. I hung the chain with my fake ring on the lamp and slid the real wedding band back onto my finger where it belonged. My phone lit up with calls from unknown numbers and one from my mother that I didn't answer. I wrote a 2-line email to the only board member who had ever truly looked at me and signed it, Alina. Then I put my phone face down and slept for the first time in months. The trouble started quickly. Deals that depended on a marriage fell apart when the bride wasn't free to marry. The news had a field day. The board met without my father that week. Macmillan pulled out, saying there were problems. Opinion pieces argued about family names and inheritance. There were photos of me in my dress climbing into a pickup truck, and photos of my father leaving a building without looking at cameras. Miss Patel texted a thumbs up, and then later a photo of our certificate stamped recorded. A month later, I met my mother for coffee in a quiet cafe. She looked smaller without the grand house around her. She took off her sunglasses. "You humiliated us," she said without anger. "I told the truth," I said. "I told it after I made sure it was the truth." She stared into her cup. "He'll never forgive you." "I don't need him to," I said, surprised at how true that felt. She looked up. "Are you happy?" I thought about the studio, about mornings that smelled like coffee and fresh paint, about laughter that didn't feel like a performance. "Yes," I said. She nodded like that answer was both a loss and a gift. Then stood, smoothed her skirt, and left without hugging me. It was the closest we'd ever been to honesty. A year later, our life is not grand. It's good. We live in a sunny loft in a city where no one cares about the Hawthorne name. The space is both our home and Ethan's art studio. I've learned to prepare canvases, stretch them tight, to wrap art for shipping, to talk to art experts without apologizing for how big my dreams are. I work part-time at a small art museum that pays decent money and offers even better company. I write descriptions that make people stop and look. I help manage a painter whose work is finally getting noticed. He's humble about it. He signs his emails, E. Cole, like he can't believe the name is becoming well known. We keep the $10 sundress in a display box on the wall, a reminder that the most important promises can be made under poor lighting with 2 strangers as witnesses. Every Tuesday we go back to City Hall. Not the same one, but a local one. And we sit on the steps with coffee and watch couples go in and out. We cheer for people we don't know. Sometimes I think about my father. Not often. When I do, I feel a distant ache, like old weather in an old scar. He hasn't called. He doesn't know how to speak a language that isn't about control. That's a loss I can live with. I spent years believing love was like a business spreadsheet. Assets, debts, power. I was wrong. Love is a choice, a rebellion, a simple promise made in a small room with bad lighting and 2 strangers as witnesses. It's standing on a stage and telling the truth because you built a life on it a week earlier, and you'd rather burn down a fancy party than lie again. I didn't just escape a bad deal. I closed the best deal of my life. What an unforgettable story of a secret wedding and a perfectly planned escape. What a mic drop. What do you think of Alina and Ethan's plan? Tell us in the comments. If you were rooting for this couple, hit like and subscribe for more stories like this. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.